The following program is intended for a mature listening audience. Graphic and explicit language may be heard at times. The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily express those of this station or sponsors. Listeners are advised, but neither the station or owners and agents will be held liable for the content of this program. Rebroadcast, redistributed, or reused without the express written permission without the host or producer is not allowed. You are listening to Family Spirit International.
So hey everybody, this is going to be an interesting show. This is the first time we've tried to do something like this since the hurricane, and we have very little resources. Internet's back out. I'm just thankful we've got power, y'all. So tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Christopher Soucy, and he is the host of the most haunted city on the planet. And can you imagine the most haunted city on the planet? Now, what do you think is the most haunted city on the planet? Let's ask him. Let's ask Christopher. Here he is. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Hi, all.
We have had quite the fiasco, but we made it. Hooray,
Yep.
hurrah.
Here we are, present, yes.
Okay, so I've got some people I'm going to add. Here's Crystal and Becky, Aaron, and here comes Gwen. And we're hoping that she's not upset now. Yeah. And here's Tracy. She's still loading. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on and helping us talk about the different stages of possession. That's a very scary thing to talk about, and you have created a wonderful documentary on your show, on your podcast, talking about the stages of exorcism, the stages of possession, and then the exorcism of what happened with this poor person. So can you tell us a bit of how the case came to your hands?
Yeah, absolutely. So we invite people to come onto our podcast all the time to share their experiences and to tell stories, and we seek out other influencers, people who have any media presence in the field of paranormal activity or paranormal investigation. And we had a friend of mine who is a local paranormal investigator come on and tell us about his most harrowing experiences. And he mentioned that he had this one experience where he uncovered what appeared to be a demonic possession of a home, and how it kind of escalated to the point at which he and his family felt the effects of being around this house and these people, to the point at which he felt that he could not safely continue helping these people directly without risking his family. And so it culminated in reaching out and getting a Catholic priest involved in finally coming in and doing a cleansing ritual for the home. And that was, it was a great story. It was very interesting. And what happened was the actual people involved, it was 3 girls who were college students living together in a house. They reached out to us and they were like, you know what? We would like to tell our story from our point of view, because there have been several people who've taken our story and then presented it without, fully appreciating all that we went through, and they feel that it was misrepresented. So we invited them on, and we got to have a good talk with them, and they basically went through their experience. And these are not spooky people. These are not people who know their way around, the paranormal lingo or anything of that nature. They just had this very harrowing experience, and it was about a 4-month period of time where their house was just under siege from this very malevolent force. And while they were describing it, I was going through the process of talking about how and there are many, many ways to look at demonic presence, and even the word demon is sensational, really, when it comes down to it, because it's just a word that we're kind of using to corral a type of energy that can be harmful, and so when you start looking at who has done the most in the Western um, school of thought to define demons and how they affect people, you're churches sort of
Sorry.
oh, it's okay. Sort of the protocol of the Catholic Church on how they define and express what happens when a house is or people are under demonic assault. So it basically, there are 4 stages, and again, this is solely the Catholic paradigm. There are many ways to go about it. I do not suggest that there is only one truth when dealing with this kind of thing, but because there is a language, it's easier to talk about it that way. So there are these 4 stages that they like to speak of in order to evaluate whether or not you're dealing with a demonic presence. And the 4 stages are number 1, infestation, which basically looks like a haunted house. Strange sounds, things moving around, fleeting glimpses of things, uneasiness, all the sensations and things that you normally hear when anybody describes being in a haunted house. Then it moves on to oppression. Now, oppression is where the spirit is now directly interacting and directly kind of causing unsteadiness in the person. It is now actively preoccupying the people's time. They now are so aware of it that they're kind of off kilter and off balance. From oppression, you go to obsession. Demonic obsession is where you cannot function anymore. You can't actually do the tasks of your life because you're so distracted by the phenomenon that is now just endlessly, riddling your time, taking up your time, making you very exhausted, exhausting all of your mental faculties, and making you very vulnerable. And then after obsession comes possession. Possession is the last, where the demon actually can control for short periods of time the person. And people oftentimes mistake the idea of possession as the demon gets in you and is puppeting you around, and you don't, and you're nowhere to be found. That's not exactly what happens. What happens is those first 3 steps, the infestation, oppression, and obsession, are wearing you out, making you so tired and so unable to resist, that when the demon wants to influence you and try to make you behave in patterns contrary to how you would behave, and take control of you in these brief bouts of your weakness, that is when the possession comes in, and that is when an exorcism is necessary. Once you've passed over the threshold from oppression to possession, you can't rely on any other form of treatment as prescribed by the Catholic Church outside of exorcism. Because in obsession, oppression, and infestation, you can use blessings, you can use any number of kind of religious, non-exorcism related ritual to keep these spirits at bay or to contain them. But once it's gotten to possession, it means that the spirit had been worn down so much that there's such a firm grasp on the person that it would seem the demon now has control.
It's so scary. We've dealt with some demonic cases, Matthew and I, and they have been more than trying, and it just seems like they find ways to creep back in.
Yes, they're tenacious, absolutely tenacious.
But there are different levels of demons, and some are to the point where a blessing is going to be okay. Other times, it's going to take a whole, like a archbishop to come in.
Oh, absolutely.
And then work with each individual person too, because if everybody's not on the same page, one person could have a failing moment, just a slight moment, and then the next thing you know, here we are. So, let it back in, and it'll come back even bigger. Are you guys ready to see his presentation?
So I have to tell you, I don't think it's available. My presentation, and I say that because we produce this podcast, and only our Parajunkies, only the people who are our patrons, actually have access to it until Saturday. It comes out Saturday. So right now it is kind of preloaded, and so our Parajunkies can see it. And our Parajunkies are subscribers who are subscribing through Patreon. So I don't think we have the ability to show it yet. We can earmark it, and you can share it.
I can see a Savannah exorcism, and it's something about with Ryan Dunn.
So, okay, that is the actual conversation with the individual who led us into it. The actual conversation, the presentation that we're speaking of, was actually just this last Tuesday, and we actually spoke to the 3 women involved. If you want to watch the Ryan Dunn episode, that's fine. We very, very briefly touch upon this particular topic. But yes, I'm sorry. I only realized it's like, oh, you know what? That episode's really new, and it won't be released until day after tomorrow.
Well, I tell you what. Let's take a quick look. Right now, YouTube is playing a little video about salad, from Zaxby's. Yeah, they do ads. Let me get. I'm going to get past it, and then I'll share the screens really quick. And we can, oh, that's really cool. Let's take a look at this. It'll be a preview. And guys, Saturday you can see it, okay? So I'm going to share screens. And go here. And here we go. Wait a minute. Let me take
Most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth.
Boom.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And JT, what's your name today? Badriggles. That's JT makes up a name that's not JT every single time we film. So he is Badriggles today over behind the camera.
Badriggles the Mikeless.
The Mikeless. It's a D&D name. But we are also joined by Ryan Dunn today. Ryan, would you like to say hello to the people?
Hey, guys. So, yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. Me and Ryan were in the trenches of the Ghost Tour Wars back in the day.
Not the wars.
Oh, there were wars. Let me tell you.
You can sell this $5 spatula on Amazon and compete with hundreds of other spatula sellers.
Yeah, so I first met Chris, I think, at a theater.
Yep,
we
that's
were
right.
filming there, me and my wife and our team, back in like 2011, maybe.
Yeah,
it's been
a while.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to have Ryan today. Next time, Ryan is on the show, he'll have his wife, Karen, who wasn't able to join us today. But we're really excited because Ryan's been in the ghost game for a while now. So we're excited to hear about his stories and his favorite ghost stories, as you will.
Absolutely.
Everybody's favorite segment. But Ryan, before we get into that, I do want to talk about your books that we have sitting here in front of us. For those of you watching on YouTube, we've got a couple of them right here. So Ryan, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I've got Savannah's Afterlife 1 and 2 out now with Schiffer Books on Amazon, and it's basically about all the cases me and my wife did in Savannah. And the new one, St. Augustine's Afterlife, comes out in October. They just sent me the printed copy like 2 days ago, so I'm
That's
excited.
fantastic.
So cool.
That's exciting. I'm gonna peek inside.
Yeah, take it. Yeah,
Yeah.
So they hooked me up. It's the one copy, and they're like, "Oh, we got more coming in about 6 weeks," but they wanted to go ahead and send one just to show me what it was going to look like to play out. So
Super cool.
Fantastic. These are great books, by the way. I have the first Afterlife, and I need to pick up the second one. But yeah, they're wonderful.
sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's our biggest thing is factuality. Me and my wife, years ago were doing investigations starting in 2010. And then we started taking some of the ghost tours to see about some new locations. Some of the stops they would go by were places we'd already researched. And the stories they were saying, we were like, yeah, this didn't happen. So that's how we got into doing tours. But our biggest thing is working with the Historic Society and talking about what really happened versus, urban legend.
Sure.
Which is fantastic because there are a lot of books on, Savannah or other haunted locations that there's some variation, which I mean, of course, happens with ghost stories, but I appreciate historical accuracy, if you will. But now, if people listening are interested in buying these books, where can they find them?
Yeah, so my wife also has a store, The Other Side, spiritshop.com, and that has all the books for sale. If they want any signed copies, we can ship them out anywhere. She also sells a lot of witch items and things like
Very
that. So a lot of spiritual stuff. So we've got all kind. We're kind of all involved in the Pepper community, so it's fun.
Absolutely, that's awesome.
And you also host ghost hunts all around, right?
Yeah, so we'll
take
host
teams out and.
Yeah, so we just got back in June, or last month rather, from St. Albans Sanatorium up in Radford, Virginia, and that was wild. A couple of people heard a lady screaming "Help me" in the hallway on location, and there was nobody screaming "Help me." We're in the bowling alley. They come running down, and they're like, "Hey, is everybody okay?" And we're like, "Yeah, why?" And they're like, "We just heard somebody upstairs screaming "Help me." So, and almost everyone got sick. And as soon as we walked out to the front porch, we were fine. Right back in the building, everyone was feeling just awful. So I think the building itself was kind of radiating a lot of energy on all the investigators.
Right. Yeah, that's always the worst when that happens. It happened a little bit to some of us at the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Some of us were just
absolutely.
feeling icky from it, but that also could have been because it's very dusty in there. But still,
Yeah, there's like the sense of oppression that can
Yeah.
because it causes a very specific type of sickness, queasiness maybe
Right.
is a better way to say it. An uneasiness that becomes physical, like a physicalized sense, and then when you get outside, it feels like you breathe again.
Mhm.
Feels like you can stand up straight.
Yep.
Because your muscles are all like.
And then as soon as we go right back in, it's back again.
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, that to me is very reliable equipment. Your body is the best piece of ghost
Yeah.
hunting equipment available. You heebie-jeebies, goosebumps, all those things that come physically. It's like don't dismiss them simply because there's nothing to regard like lights lighting up or twitches on a needle.
and that's a good point. We worked with Juwan Mass from Ghost
Oh, yeah.
Brothers back in
Mhm.
October, and we did the Juliet Gordon Low birthplace
Yeah.
and the Telfair Museum. And he was even telling one of the kids, we did it for Make-A-Wish, and he was telling the little girl, he said, yeah, your best equipment's your body. So it's kind of cool. It's cool to hear from other people too.
That's pretty accurate with the Ghost Brothers. They're big fans of the heebie-jeebie internal meter.
Yep.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too. I always the sidebar on the Ghost Brothers because we're lucky enough to work with them regularly. Their ability to disarm a situation through humor and through keeping their spirit light
Yep.
really does help keep the hunt from becoming oppressive.
Yep.
We have noted because they generally investigate to a certain point in our investigation and then they go they leave.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and once they leave, that levity leaves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
that
it's-
lightness that they bring to it. And it's like that's such a good protection from oppressive feelings and dark spiritual nature is to have a high morale and
Right.
and humor.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like they bring such a good energy
Yeah,
to
they
the
do.
investigations and really fun. And they made it light for this kid because I brought my kids too for that one because she was about the same age.
Right.
And our kids are getting more involved in the family business
Great.
now. So
Fantastic.
the
Oh, that's
younger one I
awesome.
think is thinking about taking over. So
Oh,
at some point. So,
Fantastic.
Wow. That's fantastic.
yeah, she went on the battleship with us at the USS North Carolina in Wilmington back in November, and Rockstar stayed up all night. So
That's awesome.
yeah, she wanted to go to the sanatorium. I'm thinking, nah, not yet,
Not
not
yet.
yet.
Work your way up. Work your way
So,
up.
but tough kids.
Fun.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Yeah. It's always nice when kids start to really lean into their interests, especially, in it being such a welcome environment with you
Yeah.
and your wife. So that's awesome to hear.
And well, now they're like 16 and 18, so it's they're out of a much older age. When we
Right,
were
and their
when we-
analytical thinking is
yeah,
much
when we
stronger.
started this, they were like 2 and 4, so they stayed away from all of it.
Right.
sure.
That's fair enough.
I would just bring out I have a little ghost trap from the 80s they play with,
Oh, yeah.
from Ghostbusters, and a little proton pack, and I'm like, here, you can ghost hunt
Yeah,
with this.
right.
So.
That's awesome. So, for those of you who are listening to this, we also are live streaming right now. And we have a few Parajunkies who are joining us. We've got EO Serenity, we've got Maggie, we've got Nikki. So, hello, y'all, for those of you watching on the live stream right now. For those of you who are not familiar, we do live stream most of our episodes while we're filming for the Parajunkies. And while we're on that note, we do want to say how great it is to be a Parajunkie. Basically, what a Parajunkie is, if you are brand new here, that is what we call our fans who are over on our Patreon.
They named themselves.
They did.
We should. I would like to point that out. That they dubbed themselves Parajunkies.
They've really doubled down on it too. So, but yeah, it's a really fun community over on Patreon. We've got group chats for like every subgenre of paranormal you can imagine. We've got lots of exclusive content. They get live streams weekly at this point. A lot of Discord with us, but also fellow enthusiasts in the paranormal. And if you are kind of teetering on the edge of whether or not you want to join us on Patreon, you can do a free week and see how you like it and then go forward with it. It's probably the best way you can support this show because we mostly use all of that Patreon money to continue growing and building this set and sending us on trips and things of that nature. So if you want to support us in that way, we definitely appreciate it.
As long as we're talking, do you have a Patreon?
No.
Okay.
So I appreciate it. Thanks. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No,
Did
you're
I
fine.
interrupt you?
Yeah, so we've actually talked about doing a YouTube channel or something of that nature because we've got so much material
Yeah.
that we're sitting on, I guess, 14 years of case
Yeah.
files.
Right.
So, and histories and stories. And that's part of what makes me write the books because I've got to put it somewhere. And
Absolutely.
the tours, of course, cover some of our locations, but we've got so many. And the books are a great way to turn out, all the stories and all the research.
Oh,
we do.
absolutely.
Exactly.
But
So-
yeah, we've got a whole wall in the office of just printed, binded case files, and I think we're up to like 150 now. So
That's so
There
cool.
you go.
That's awesome. So I was going to start out by asking, I know this is a very loaded question because you
Yeah.
investigate a lot of places, but if you had to pick one place that you've investigated that you would want to go back to, what would it be?
well, that's tough. I can think of a few places I don't want to go back to. I know
Fair
there's a couple of
enough.
those.
As a matter of fact, let's
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah.
That sounds far more interesting.
Yeah.
But so I know we did Candler Hospital back
sure.
when it was still abandoned, and this must have been 2011 or 12,
Yeah.
before they got renovated.
Um,
And we had stuff come home with us from the hospital, and we ended up getting a photo down in one of the hallways of a woman looking through one of the doorways, and it looks like an old nurse.
Mm.
But a team we were working with out of Atlanta had something follow them home too. So we were both
Wow.
dealing with attachments, and it just felt evil. And we got down into the morgues and down into the
Right.
tunnels, and
I've been in both, and some of the more interesting things is a lot of people don't realize that Candler building was an asylum for a while. It actually stopped being like a hospital that cared for people in the medical way and turned into a psychiatric
Right.
building for a while. It was Georgia Regional's office, and at a time when mental health was a burgeoning industry,
Right, yeah.
where there were still, it was like at the tail end of like lobotomy and into. So
Yep.
I've heard a lot of stories, and I've experienced what I experienced in the building seemed to be a giant bald man in a hospital gown, and by rumor they're like, oh yeah, there were a lot of patients that were loaned out to Oakland
Loaned
Highland,
out.
oddly
Yeah.
enough.
yeah, because Milton Bradley,
Yeah, Milton
he
Bradley,
was
yeah.
lobotomized there. I mean, of course, he
Yeah.
was still
Really?
working at Bradley's, but I
Right.
mean, he was functionable, but I mean, he was not the same, obviously, after
That's correct.
having
Right.
a lobotomy, and that happened to Candler there. So,
Wow.
Yeah, that was I want to say that was the prevailing story, was any place that would perform lobotomies, if you believe in the supernatural, the paranormal, that is a living death.
yeah,
It's like, what does that do to the
Yep.
spirit when you think of a human being? And if you believe in ghosts, we tend to believe that when the body dies, the spirit is separated from the body.
Right.
But what happens when you take the mind and limit it?
Yeah.
It's like, does that spirit suddenly become detached from that physical form?
And he had
it's
it
such a
from-
good question.
It was from PTSD too.
It was.
from
He
coming
was
back
shell
from the war.
shocked.
Yeah,
from World
shell
War II.
shocked.
Yeah.
And so that's what the treatment was awful. But I mean, just to think. And so I'd say that place, we went on a trip to Waverly, you mentioned earlier, and did
Mhm.
Bobby
You go
Mackey's
back.
the following night.
I'm gonna
Oh
stop.
God.
Well, now
So, hey, everybody. There. So we have a surprise for you. Actually, I owe this to my producer, Gwen. She's going to share screens and we've got a little surprise. All right. You got to help me share the screen. Okay, go back to StreamYard. Well, shoot 'em out. There we go. Well, we'll go back in a second. So it's been interesting listening to him talk about his cases. We've been putting all of ours on like an electronic file.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what I'm working on now, because I'm one of the board members of Dominion Ministries, what I'm doing now is getting them to do the same thing. So we can search the files and we can find similarities and get some help. Okay, Gwen's back in now. Yeah. Share screen? Yes. Now you have to pick where it is. It's right there. Yeah. All right. It's gonna go in a minute. It's right there. Just click on it once. Go to Windows. Is that it right there?
That's what I'm saying.
Entire
Just
screen?
do it this way. I didn't know how to get that off. Just do it this way.
Okay. We got it.
We're doing it messed up, but it'll be all right.
Using the university stuff is not so easy. There we go. There it is. There we go.
So you got your new Parajunkie, Chris.
That's right. It's funny because I actually don't have access to it because I'm not a parajunkie.
Are you kidding me?
Here we go. Here we go.
I do not know what it's doing. I'm just gonna get off of here.
Might be this thing.
I'm getting off of that one, and then I'm just gonna show it.
That's a good idea. And now that's better. Now where did it go?
Is that
You're
it?
on the right tab. Now you got it. Our nerves are shut off. Our nerves are shut off. Shit. It just is. Here we go. Can you see it? Yeah, but you gotta hit the button.
I am Madison Timmons, and we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison. And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Lucy.
And today we are joined by three lovely members of the what is formerly, I guess, known as the Hagland case. You might have remembered it when we had Ryan Dunn on the show, and he had talked about his experience with the case. But today we have Kristen, Stacy, and Lindsay with us, and they're going to be telling us their side of their story. So thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and just literally jump right on into it. So I guess the first part of the timeline is how did y'all meet and how did you get to Savannah?
So actually, Kristen and I met back in 2012. We had a class together. And I generally, every time I talk about
What's
how we met,
happening?
I made a stupid joke in class and no one laughed except for her. And they were like, that's gonna be my best friend right there.
That is
And
how
then
friendships
a
are
year
made.
later,
I don't know.
a year later, we met Stacy. Kristen and Stacy actually had a class together, and Kristen didn't like Stacy because she was too quiet.
No.
And then the next
She was
quarter-
judgy, okay?
And then the next quarter, all three of us had a class together. And I was like, no, she's just quiet, Kristen. She's great.
And
that's
Stacey's
how-
also uber talented. Like Stacey is incredibly talented. It was a 2D drawing class. So, you know, just being quiet and just being amazing in the class, everyone hated her. So we had another class, and it was another 2D drawing class. I was like, oh, that girl. So Lindsay was like, no, she's just quiet. I was like, okay, I'll give her a chance.
Yeah. And then we actually went to Hong Kong together and did a quarter over there in college, and that's how we actually started living together. And then we came back to the States. We were very much on a very tight turnaround of finding a new house to live in for before the next quarter started, and that's actually how we landed in the house. So we moved in December of 2013, and we moved out in May of 2015. So about a year and a half we lived in the house.
Okay. And where in Savannah, like you don't have to give the address, but where in Savannah in general, where was the house?
In Savannah proper. We
Okay.
were in downtown Old Savannah.
Okay,
We
interesting.
were originally, we were in the Red District.
Okay.
The Laurel Grove Cemetery.
Very close to where we are right now, so that's comforting.
I think there was one more question.
He said, turn it up some.
So when did you guys start to notice things? Was it like immediately off the jump or?
No. We lived in that house for a year before anything happened. And it wasn't until February, and very specifically, actually near Stacy's birthday, that we ended up losing power, and almost immediately, excuse my French, shit hit the fan, literally. So it was February of 2015, we lost power, and we were all, and it's typical art students, you can hear it throughout the house, power goes off, and you just say, oh my God, did I save anything? And that's all you hear throughout the house, all of us yelling.
Gonna save my projects.
And we ended up actually collectively sitting in my room, waiting for the power to come back on. And Stacey, I want to say that you were trying to show us something on your laptop.
Yeah, it was like, oh yeah, my laptop's charged. We're gonna watch like a movie or something. That's when we're like, before that though, we had went outside to see how far like the power was out and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was only like our street and maybe the street next to us. And I remember we're also outside. Sorry. Yeah, and so we talked to them and they were like, yeah, looks like it's just our block. And then we had gone back inside, but while that was happening, I guess we left the door open, we didn't think about it, and we were out on the street talking. So that was our first thought, was like, when we went back inside, Stacy went to go get her laptop, and she collects Funko Pops, you know, a lot of us, I do too, I think Lindsay does as well. And Stacy goes into the room, and she goes, holy shit, runs back in, and we go with her, and all of her Funko Pops are like turned around.
Yeah, like facing the wall. Oh.
Yeah, and then we like run back to her room, and I like call my mom immediately, which I should have I was like, I think someone might have gotten the house when we were outside, but I was like, that's a really weird thing for someone just to do that breaks into your house.
Well, then we went to Kristen's room and all the candles that were lit.
Oh yeah.
All over they were not in the same location that they were on the wall.
Yeah, around
On
the
the floor,
bed.
and there was one in the middle of the bed. So like, It was very odd.
That would be
That's
so
incredibly
strange.
strange. And it's so very like again, if you're to make a horror movie, that's it. That's how you do it. You know,
That's right.
because that's such a turn on it. And the interesting thing is a power outage in the middle of winter. There's a notion and a belief that if there are supernatural entities in the area, they can feed off of different power sources. And a lot of people believe that electricity is something that, and you hear some of these shows, the battery, I just charged this battery and now it's dead. The idea is that the spirits can consume electricity, and if you're in the middle of winter where there's no humidity to pull out of the air, and you turn the electricity off, then the only thing left is humans, us. We become the source of energy for supernatural, presences. So it's an interesting thing because it is like, that's such a very significant thing where you're saying, I think it was this moment. And then when you go back and you listen to a lot of people's ghost stories involve things like, the reason the theaters are so haunted is because of the high power lights. There's electricity in some shape for spirits. But when they don't have it, they come to you. And I always tell people, if you want to go ghost hunting, go. Because the ghosts are likely to interact with you and try and get your energy. Because during the heat, they can feel right up here. That's the cold spot. Oh, there's a cold spot there. You feel this cold spot because it's drawing it right out of the air. So it's fascinating to be like, oh, that was a quick turnaround. Almost making you wonder if the blackout itself wasn't the cause of some kind of disruption. Maybe a neighbor's house or a neighboring entity. Overfed and then immediately
for years, I know that all of us had we had full blown anytime the power went out. It took a very I don't know, until I moved into my current house 4 years ago, I still would literally sit in the corner and shake. I couldn't, because not even at this time, in the story, this to us, we saw somebody was in the house, so back to the story. It's in my ADHD brain, it goes everywhere. I'm sorry. We all have ADHD. That's kind of
You're on the ADHD show. You're good. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, no. So we had them. We went back into the room and shut the door, and we were kind of just we were outside. But, it's not the best area, right? Also not horrendous, but it's not the best area.
It's too sweet.
We just thought this kind of okay, police, it's a silly thing to tell the police. We weren't sure kind of what to do, so I just had this USB rechargeable light, Panda thing, and I was holding it. Lindsay grabbed that, and we just walked through the house and we checked everywhere. There possibly could be something hiding. It was a one-story house, and Louis' bedroom, so there's Louis' bedroom, my bedroom, and Stacy's. So on the same side of the house. So, we were it's pretty small. So, we found nothing and shut the door, and that was about it for the night.
Yeah. Basically, when we realized that nobody was in the house, I was trying to put my boots on and leave. And Christina was like, "Where are you going?" I was just like, "We have work to do."
That is the correct response. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
But it was the first one of these at any point in time. I was literally putting my boots and jacket on. I was like, "I will survive."
I make it to the credits.
Exactly. Yeah. But once we took everybody out from their ledge, mostly me, nothing really happened. And then that weekend, actually, Stacy's family was coming down, and Kristen's family was actually headed to Disney World. So they stopped by while going to Florida. So everybody's parents except for mine were in town. And since it was Stacy's birthday weekend, she went out to dinner with her parents, and I actually tagged along with Kristen's parents to go out with them. And we decided for some odd reason, for one reason or another, we were going to come back to the house with Kristen's family and just kind of chill out and talk out of what, for whatever reason. And Kristen and I actually made it back to the house first prior to them.
And we were walking in and we were telling jokes and we were laughing. And we're passing by Kristen's room because my room is actually at the back of the house. Kristen's room is in the middle. And Kristen opens her door and she has this giant, and she gasping, and I turn around, I'm like, what's going on? And I look into her room, I'm like, I don't see anything. And I look up, and on top of the ceiling fan is this rectangular object, and the ceiling fan is just spinning. But the ceiling fan isn't on. And Kristen's like, what is it? I'm like, I don't know. So I go up on her bed and I take it down, and it's actually the mirror that was on her wall behind us. And I go, don't aim it at me, because if I see anything in that mirror, I'm out of this house. I'm done. I will never come back. And so I was like, how the hell did that happen? And Kristen's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, I don't know, because no one's been in the house. And then while all of this is going on, her family shows up. Her parents walk in. They're like, what's going on? And we explained it to them. And then Stacy comes back with her parents, and her parents are actually staying at the house with us. And so we're all kind of a little on edge at this point, because now the activity hasn't stopped. And everybody leaves except for Stacy's parents. And actually that night, her mom gets up in the middle of the night, and she can't sleep for whatever reason. And she looks off to the side, and we had this box of Coke cans. And there was one Coke outside the box, and it just tips over and then pushes off the edge of the table. It's like rolls off. Yeah, it just rolls off. So,
It's such an insane amount of kinetic physical experiences. The fact that you have objects moving so quickly too, because oftentimes you build up to an object moving, you have like very strange sounds, screechies, and little sounds. It seems like you started with like a bunch of Funko Pops facing the wrong direction, mirrors on top of
and not just like
blades.
one or two Funko Pops, like a collection of
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
candy and some in every single one. Yeah.
Because I'm always telling people, spirits don't have physical bodies. There's muscles, no bone, nothing. So what they're doing entirely with energy. As I try to imagine moving something just a little bit, and that's what's happening. They're moving it with something that doesn't exist, and it's like, oh, that's a powerful movie. I mean, and it's cool. A spirit that would touch a mirror was nightmarish, actually. But most spirits avoid mirrors.
Yeah.
There's a common belief that a spirit could get lost in a mirror. So yeah, no, blah, I say.
Well, this one's definitely not afraid of mirrors.
Well, no, and I'll get to that later. There are stages of the storytelling in which it's like there is a brand of spirit that is very, very comfortable with mirrors, and oftentimes use mirrors to truly horrify people.
Yeah.
But in this, like, as you're telling it, if you were to come to me with just these stories, we would thinking poltergeist-like activity, and simple spirits that are asserting themselves very aggressively. And that's kind of, it's funny because a lot of people don't talk about the stages of like a possession or a demon presence in a home. That there are 4 stages, and the first stage is infestation, and the infestation looks like a haunting. It's just objects moving, strange sensations, making you uneasy. And the whole purpose of that is to lower your resolve, to take away your ability to logic your way out or to fight with anything other than panic, or it's wearing you down. So in that first stage, in the infestation stage, it's making you question the reality you live in. So yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Me and Lindsay, we're also very big skeptics. Stacey's a little more open to stuff, but we're not really not really religious or anything. No, but it's very I was adamantly there's got to be some explanation. I was convinced someone was coming in our house. I was convinced because they had told us when we moved in there had been squatters there before. I was like, there's got to be some way. You see that video of that little old lady living in a cabin? There's somebody in our house. We're making jokes about it because we cope with humor, and we're like, there's something here. There's someone here messing with us. Somebody's doing this, and that was, until I think until you guys went away for the week, that was pretty much our response. We were making jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
It was fun. Because there was no, really, you didn't feel a threat within the house.
Yes.
Like there was that bad energy wasn't there. Like you can still walk in and be cheerful and happy-go-lucky at the beginning. It wasn't until the end that you can really feel it gaining momentum and gaining more and more energy. That's just like it sucked the joy out of you. Like you couldn't be happy in this house. You physically couldn't do it.
Right.
But so the phone. So we ended up actually. So we had one more week, and during that week. Now, we found out later on that what happened in my room, noise-wise, did not happen in the rest of the house. So what Kristen and Stacy would hear is not necessarily what I would hear. And come to find out, my room, we didn't know it at the time, was a void. I was not hearing anything. So they would talk about like, oh, did you hear the walking? I'm like, no, the house is settling. They're like, no, someone's walking in the attic. The attic is not big enough for anyone to walk into. It's a little crevice. Barely you could call it an attic. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I hear a house settling, but I'm not hearing walking. And that happened throughout the week prior to Stacy and I leaving to go home for a week. And during that week, I actually needed, and we're gearing up to graduation. So all of us have our gowns with us in the house. So during the week while I'm at home, I actually needed some measurements. So I call up Chris and I'm like, do you mind going into my room, getting those measurements and, texting them to me? And she's like, yeah, sure, no problem. She calls me back an hour later and she's like, you freak. And I was like, what? I was like, do you know how scared I was walking into your bedroom? I was like, for what? She's like, your cap and gown is on the ceiling fan. I said, no, it's not.
And it was directly outside of the room. It looked like someone was standing there when I walked in. I was not okay with her.
I was like, Kristen, no, it's not. It's in my closet because who puts a cap and gown on a ceiling fan? She's like, it's hanging on your ceiling fan, Lindsay. I don't know what to tell you. I was like, well, could you take it down? Because I don't want to get dusty, please. And she was like, I don't know, if you're not the one who put it up there, I don't want to go back in there.
And now I'm alone. Yeah, I'm alone for a couple days. I'm like, I'm just gonna lock myself in my room and not leave because now I'm terrified.
Right.
You are all passing the horror movie test. You're all doing a good job. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. But that night, she calls me up and she was like, there's someone in Stacy's room. And I was like, well, call 911. And she was like, no. She's like, she's like, Lindsay, I don't think anyone's in the house, but someone is in Stacy's room. And I was like, well, what makes you think that? And she was like, well, there's humming. And it's really loud. It's really loud humming. And she puts her phone next to the wall that they share. So one side is Stacy's room, the other one is Kristen's. And she's like, can you hear? And I'm like, honestly, no, I can't. But can you call me, take a recording of it, send it to me, and then call me back? And she did, and on the recording, you can clearly hear a woman just humming her little heart out. And that, I was like, oh my God, I think you need to get out of the house. And then Kristen's called me back. She's like, can you hear it? I'm like, yeah, I can hear it. She's like, I tried to go up to the door. And you touched the doorknob or something like that, Kristen? It was cold?
No, I didn't. So I didn't go at the time.
Okay.
I heard something. Immediately, I turned every light on that I could reach. And I thought it was from outside. So I was like, I don't like what's going on. So I turned all the lights on. And I went by Stacey's door and I'm like, oh no, that's Stacey's room. And I ran back to my bedroom and I shut the door and I moved. I have this little it was like a printer tray next to my, and I had to put it in front of my door. I'm like, this is gonna help me against the ghost, because yeah. And I'm like freaked out. I'm calling, there's somebody in there. There's somebody in there. I'm crying. So there's a phone call and there's a recording. I'm sobbing on the phone call going, I don't know what to do. I'm hyperventilating, I'm panicking. I'm like, it's so loud, so loud.
These women
and I'm like, I thought it was from outside of her, a party and someone singing, and it was just humming. It was it was no song I knew, nothing, it was just humming. And so this was maybe the first hour of the humming. And I was on the phone with Lindsay almost the whole time, and I was like, all right, I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna call my brother who lives on the other side of town. He lives by Forsyth Park. And so he's at a party, drinking. He's like, I'm gonna ride my bicycle over with my friend. I'm like,
My
all right.
savior.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So he's like, but it'll be like an hour and a half. I was like, okay. So I'm basically just sitting there, you know, I had called my parents. I'm like, can you guys hear this? Like, I don't want to be alone. And I think I ended up talking to my mom on the phone for, I don't know, a couple of hours while I waited for him. And it just got progressively louder and louder and louder. And then, so my brother shows up and I hang up the phone. I'm like, hey, you know, he's here. So he's like, I'm not coming to the door. I'm like, what? Like, I hear it from out here. I'm like, yeah, because her door's right next to the door. Like her bedroom is right next to the front door. And he's like, okay, you need to come open the front door for me. And he's like, I'll come in. I was like, okay. And I open my door and all the lights are out. And I'm like, no, I specifically turned on every single light in this house. I'm not leaving. Can you open her window or something? And he's like, no. I'm like, all right. I was like, but you better be at that door. So I ran like as fast as I could to the front door, threw it open, and like walked out on the porch. And I was like, I don't want to go in. So he's like, no. And remember, he's a little bit drunk. And he's like, no, we'll go in. This is my friend. He's really religious.
Perfect.
Like,
Yes,
every
thank you.
person I've ever met in high. So we go inside, and now the scene was like extremely loud. And they put their hand on the door, and it's like really cold. And they're like, it's so weird. It's like freezing. And they go to open the door, and the singing immediately stops. Immediately stops. Thing stops. We're all standing there, just going like. And he opens the door, and Stacey's room is destroyed. Everything's everywhere. I had heard no noise aside from the singing, but all of a sudden we hear like something, and then the whole room is like messed up. And we're just sitting there staring, and we're like, okay. So his friend grabs one of Stacey's candles, lights it, and goes, no, you gotta confront it. And I'm like, you need to get out. Like, he's like, no. He's like, you know, religious. I'm gonna say a prayer. It's gonna be okay. And I was like, okay. And they just start like, my brother's just like wandering around the room, like picking stuff up. And I'm like,
I'm religious, it's fine.
can we? So we're trying to like clean up her room.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to be in here. And he says like a little prayer or whatever, and then that was it. And they ended up staying the night, or my brother did, and his friend left on the bike. And my brother ended up staying the night and sleeping on the couch, and I slept on the other couch, and we watched movies and had all the lights on, and it was okay. But nothing else happened that night. But when we woke up in the morning, there was, our dining room table was like behind the couches, and one of the chairs was pulled up right next to where my brother's head had been. And was like right on the side of the couch. It was like a weird position for it to be in. It was one of the backlit chairs too. So that was the only thing I was like, did you use the chair? He's like, no. Cool. Looks like somebody was like watching the movie with us. It was weird.
We're watching
and
her
you
brother really close.
or something. I don't. Yeah,
And these are heavy chairs too, because they're actually, I still have the chairs. They're made out of oak. So these are not light chairs by any means for it to just pick up and move.
Right.
Right. But yeah, that was that day. And then he ended up leaving, and he wouldn't come back.
Understandably.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how you get rid of a drunk preacher.
But that unfortunately it's not the end of what happened that weekend. So I got really freaked out. At this point, I was not comfortable being in that house, but really didn't have anywhere to go. Everyone was out of town. So I went, and I literally, anytime I left the bedroom, I would be on a video call with Lindsay or Stacey, because I was so scared. I don't know. I was pretty convinced that I was like dead. Whatever was there was going to come for me. And I was like, but nothing had gone in my room or touches in my room. So I felt safe in there. But the next day, I'm trying to remember, it was almost
Yeah.
about 1:30. I was going to the kitchen to get a drink or something.
No, the back door,
Lee,
with
it'll
Riley,
be
the
on
dog.
YouTube
He was
regularly.
telling me something,
This
Riley.
Saturday.
And so she was on the phone with me, so the camera was facing out, so I was not looking at Kristen. And we were rounding the corner and I saw my bedroom, just, at the corner of my eye, my door was closed. And she was like, look at what Riley can do. And she showed me a trick that, whatever the trick was, I think it was like sit on command at that point. And I was like, well, what a good boy. And, she turns the camera back around, so now I'm facing her. And she's going back to her room, so she's going down the hallway. And she turns the corner and I see behind her that my door is now wide open. And I see that because when you open my door, right there is my bed. And then there's the rest of the room because I actually have the master. And I was like, my door is open and my bed is completely moved. And she was like, what do you mean? And she looks behind her, sees that what I said was true, hauls ass to her room, closes the door. And she was like, Lindsay, I swear to God, that door was not open. I was like, I know it wasn't open because I remember clocking it, especially after you told me everything that happened at Stacy's room. So now I feel a little bit more protective of my room because I don't want someone going in there, but too late, someone did. And so I was like, do you mind coming out? And I'll be on the phone with you the whole time. Not the fact that I could actually do anything, but do you mind going into my room? Because I really would like to see what happened. And that took some convincing. that took a good 20 minutes.
I was already pretty freaked out at that point. There was,
Yeah. And so Kristen, being the hero, walked into my room and she showed me everything. And this thing, we thought that it was pissed at Stacy. It apparently had a big old grudge for me. My bed was completely just destroyed. It was moved. The headboard was moved.
Sounds more like.
Blankets that were on my bed is now across the way. My graduation gown is back on the ceiling fan. The dresser was pushed to the side. And the clothes were just out and spewed everywhere. It was just completely messed up. And I was like,
It
oh,
sounds more like a.
I guess I should stop making fun of it.
That's what they said.
They said initially
it
me,
sounds like poltergeist.
But
When it gets
I
to
was
the
like,
next
she made me go into the
fourth
room.
stage.
I will never forget. She made me go
Yes,
into
very
the
violent.
room.
I'm sorry.
No.
Her really expensive Cintiq had something over it, was hanging over it. And she's like, you need to make sure my Cintiq is working. And I'm like,
Sure, yeah.
I don't want to be here.
Ghosts be damned, make sure the equipment's still running.
Lee,
Yeah.
it's still on there.
So I ripped the thing off and I was like, oh, it's fine, I'm out. I ran to my room, but all night, after that, I heard something and walking through the hall.
All right, upside down. Can you guys see me? I just want to say thank you again to Christopher Susie and the most haunted city on the earth for allowing us to, yes, everybody clap, yay. If you would like to see this episode, you can go to his YouTube channel, The Most Haunted City on the Earth. And it's very easy for you Saturday to see it. He does have a group on Patreon. He has a channel, and the Para Junkies that pay for that can see all of these before everyone else. So thank you, Christopher, for being such a lovely guest. I'm sorry we had so many technical problems as we are still recovering from Hurricane Helene. Thank you to all the class. I'll send some pictures out of some of the paintings we did. I do feel like understanding the stages of the demonic possession it's hard to deal with, and you can't recognize it if you're going through it unless you know ahead of time. This case looks more like it's a poltergeist. But then after the stage that you saw tonight, it gets really intense. So please tune in to Christopher Soucy's YouTube channel on Saturday and see if you can watch the rest of the episode. While you're on YouTube, please go to Family Spirit 96 and subscribe to my channel too. We'll have Christopher back on as a guest, and so we'll be able to talk about some really awesome cases. All right, so that's all for tonight, and I thank you guys for
Yay.
watching. Yay.
We made it.
We made it! Woo! Thank you.